In Italy, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. In Switzerland, they had brotherly love. They had 500 years of democracy and peace. And what did that produce? The cuckoo clock.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we take a cinema legend and then take 5 of their films to highlight their excellence and range. My name is Austin Luger.
My name's Eric Martindale.
And welcome to our 4th week on our Orson Welles 5. Previously we have covered Citizen Kane, The Third Man, and Othello. Next week we're covering Chimes at Midnight, but today is all about Touch of Evil. This is the 1958 noir film that Orson Welles is brought back to the Hollywood circle, where he is sort of adapting a novel that he basically abandoned and rewrote himself. Which is the story of a bomb that went off, that starts a major conflict.
I'm really interested in how you summarize this because the plot's really complicated.
It is. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, basically. Like, a bomb goes off, this upsets the Mexican and American police on both sides of the border, and you're watching Mike Vargas, the main Mexican detective, try to figure out exactly where this dynamite came from, what's going on, while also kind of being at heads with Orson Welles' character of Captain Quinlan, who is a nasty racist dude, who's definitely corrupt.
Would we call him racist?
They just hate everyone.
Yeah.
but definitely Mexicans as well.
No, he's definitely, you can add racist to the list. He's just an old curmudgeon.
He's just a gross.
He's really gross. Yeah.
And that's what's going on. This is a rather beloved noir film. Maybe not as beloved as The Third Man, but definitely is notable for a number of reasons, one of which we start at the very beginning, I guess, of one of the most famous tracking shots in history.
It's incredible.
Yeah. How do you describe this?
Okay, so at the very beginning of the shot, you see a kid running up to a car with a bomb. Right before he drops the bomb into the back of a trunk, he sets the timer to 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Drops the bomb in the back of the car, shuts the trunk, runs away. You follow 2 people come and get it, and it's all in the same shot. Over the top of the building, the camera now goes about 20 feet in the air, get in the car. At this point, we start to follow Charlton Heston and Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, Janet Leigh, walking down the street. And the car keeps pulling up right next to them. We know there's a bomb in the car. Keeps pulling up next to them because traffic is stopping, right? And right when you think they're away from the car will enter the frame again. And the whole time the camera's going with it. The tension's incredible because you know you don't want to be next to that car when the bomb goes off, and yet no one knows that. So you know that everyone around that car when it blows up is going to die. So we follow it for a very long time. And then right when the border is crossed, they're stopped by border agents. Meanwhile, keep in mind, this camera's been going around all the streets. You've had sounds from inside the buildings keep going on and off, the music from the car on and off as these things pass, natural conversations happening with all the people as they walk by. And then right as they get to the border agents, the car gets about, 50 feet beyond the Mexican border, it blows up in America. And that's the opening part of the film. Your guess is as good as mine at how they did that.
The scope is so big of the geography of all that's happening in one shot. The way it's all orchestrated is just an amazing achievement. And also, a small little thing, it could be seen as overacting, but I just enjoy it as a small little bit of madness of the woman who's in the car that complains and just keeps hearing this ticking noise in her head. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
It's just a great classic Hitchcock thing.
Hitchcock.
Yeah.
It's Hitchcock, right?
I mean, it's definitely Hitchcock. I mean, Notorious had that element of, like, the bombs under the table. Mm-hmm. And this, you just always know where it is. And the whole scope of the 3 minute and 20 second is supposed to almost distract you in how dazzling it is, but also, like, you can't stop looking at that car. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic.
And then from there, the movie gets worse, but it's still great.
Yeah.
Just because that tracking shot is
that
incredible.
The first 3 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's so cool. And it's been mimicked and parodied many times. The opening to The Player is a reference to this. The True Detective tracking shot is more technically impressive because it happened 50 years later, but it's definitely indebted to this scene by a lot.
Well, I think pretty much any very long tracking shot that has elements of storytelling to it, and it's not just like, oh, I'm going to show off the setting or whatnot, it's actually advancing the story, owes itself probably to this shot. Once again, this is Orson Welles breaking ground, right?
Oh,
so,
yeah.
You have all those new introductions to Citizen Kane that led to various other things that came later. And it was Carol Reed in Third Man, but Orson Welles was there when it happened. And in this film, you have this incredible tracking shot, and, it's like every Johnny-come-lately wants to talk about P.T. Anderson's tracking shots like they ain't ever seen Touch of Evil, and they haven't seen this one, you know what I mean? And this is just as technically impressive as any of those, if not more so.
Oh, absolutely.
It's incredible. It really is that cool. If you don't watch the film, YouTube this, at least, because it's amazing.
And the rest of the film, because last week I was annoyed by the sloppiness of the filmmaking, this is kind of more of a return to form for me, for Orson Welles. Yes, that is the peak in the first 3 minutes, but the next 2 hours was really good. Mm-hmm. And it's often very well edited and paced, and it's shot so well. And I kind of want to talk about how he shoots himself.
Yes. It's always like looking down at an angle or up at an angle.
It's so different from the way he depicted himself as Kane or Othello, because that was just so majestic and important. Now Orson Welles physically, he didn't gain weight for this performance, by the way. This is just him getting fatter.
He is bigger, but it's important to note, this is only 4 years after Othello, which is like, he's a warrior, Othello, in that. But also, a lot of this was technical tricks, like, yes, Orson Welles was fatter later. Orson Welles is not as fat as he appears in this film yet. Okay. Yeah, so that worth noting.
That actually is important because, I've seen further films of him.
He is that fat in Chimes of Midnight. He's not that fat here.
But in the other films, he is a way of, the Orson Welles character always is where you put your eye in the room. In this character, while he is a presence, he is not seen as glamorous as anything we've seen so far. He is notably gross, disgusting. He's not even verbally articulate in the same way that the others work. He just mumbles gross stuff.
He's sweating,
constantly. And you can also lose him in the room. He's not as flattering as a camera as he's done to him before. And that's something really interesting. He still is a captivating character because he's just so... He's corrupt in such a particular way. He's corrupt, but he believes in his corruptness, which is different than other characters who are just I'm just going to rip off the top because I just want the money kind of thing.
Well, it's Orson Welles.
Yeah.
No, it's... The character is Orson Welles, right? When you think about it, so much about this character is about somebody who is past his prime, or at least he believes he is, and so many other people have done him wrong, but he takes just as much part in his own destruction. Roger Ebert in his review for this film focused on that, how much of Orson Welles is in this character, and there's probably a lot of it. He was getting bigger at the time. He did peak early with Citizen Kane, and so much of this film keeps calling back to the early days when he was a police officer, and the one person he didn't catch was the very first murder that he had to solve, which was the murder of his wife. So there's just an inherent sadness with this character too that kind of exists. He's sad. Right, he's always chasing something that he's never going to get back. Now, what that actually is up for interpretation.
But at least there's hope because he gets happily ever after. Oh wait, no, he gets shot in the back.
Yes, and he's the antagonist of this film, right? This is a very ugly character, like we talked about earlier in this film, but he also murders someone in this film.
Yes.
He also is afraid. A lot of so he's known as this great detective. A lot of those cases that he solved were people that he framed.
Yes.
Were they guilty? Probably. The movie says probably they were. But if you needed that extra evidence, he was the guy to plant the evidence just to seal the deal and close the case. There's a great line in this film when he says, well, I don't, to actually be a police officer is difficult. So you do these type of things to make it easier. And Charlton Heston responds to him the only place policing should be easy is in a police state. Which is that's a fantastic line.
That is.
And it's not about being easy, right? It's about doing it correctly. Like, it's supposed to be about doing it right, whether these people are actually guilty or not. But that's sort of the whole mesh here. There's like a lot of moral ambiguity. I mean, he's undeniably disgusting, but it wants to leave it open with there being some sort of moral ambiguity to the character as well. He wants to exist somewhere in the middle, but by the end, he fails to even do that.
Well, that's what makes him an interesting antagonist, because he didn't blow the people up.
No, he didn't.
He's not that antagonist.
Actually, and the guy he plants the dynamite for to frame the guy is guilty.
Yeah. But yet, he's still the antagonist, because
Yes.
he's going about it in just such an awful way that disrespects all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have the opposite, which is Charlton Heston as Mike Vargas, who is a Mexican officer played by Charlton Heston.
We keep doing this.
God damn it. I don't think we keep doing that. Orson Welles keeps doing
He
this.
keeps doing this. That's true.
It is considered one of the worst casting you can do. Charlton Heston's not bad in this.
I think he's good.
Yeah, he just shouldn't.
He shouldn't
play
have played the
Mexican.
part. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's also a part that is Mexican isn't just like adds to the character. It is
It's
the story.
important.
It is the actual
It's
story.
important. Sure.
He's a Mexican detective.
But that doesn't make none of that makes Charlton Heston bad in the film.
No, it's just
He's a bad for the film.
Yes.
He's not bad in the film.
in fact he's weirdly because he just becomes shouting for most of his career. After Planet of the Apes, he's just like crazy. Yeah. This actually is rather understated, and he has a really kind of great authority about him, and it's a very hero kind of performance. He really kind of runs into danger in a way that he's going to save the day.
Ignoring the fact that you have a white person, playing someone who's Mexican, should have been cast by a Mexican or Hispanic actor. There's so much that this actually does for race, right? It taps into some good areas here, okay? First of all, the characters are against archetype. You have the American, who is the fat, blubbering slob that isn't following the law. Mm-hmm. You have the Mexican, who is following the law and is the spirit of justice in the film. He's the angel in the film to his devil. You have a whole decade, particularly in westerns and whatnot, where that's completely flipped. Mm-hmm. So that goes against that. Mm-hmm. None of the racism presented by the character played Quinlan, is good. It's not presented in a good light. No one likes him. It adds to his ugliness, right? Right.
It is. It's always the film is against it, as opposed to a John Wayne movie where it's seen as to the hero said it. Mm-hmm. That just makes him tough, kind of thing.
So I feel like in that regard, that makes this a little less problematic. If your problem here is whitewashing, that's a problem now.
It is. And problem's a problem.
Problem's a problem. Right. It's not like what I'm saying is, this movie could have been made last year and something could have done the same exact thing. Yeah. It's not like putting Orson Welles in blackface and Othello.
Yeah.
They're both bad.
Oh,
that's
God.
worse.
Okay. This is exhausting.
I think there are varying degrees, particularly when you consider the actual characters are breaking with type so much. And the movie, I think, has a lot of good things to say about race. Or at least it's going in the right direction. It's trending the right way.
It's so jarring to see it. Because it is, the whole idea of the way that they are judging Quinlan so much for planting evidence is about assumptions and stereotypes. Mm-hmm. Right? That is into the criticism of what's going on, and that's a good progressive statement with a not progressive image as your lead.
Sure.
It's a very strange film to look back at in 2017. Yeah, it doesn't completely derail the movie, but I can see why it would for some. But it's a really good movie in a very strange way. I saw a story that Orson Welles had this chance to finally get back in the Hollywood system, so he actually asked his assistant or someone to hand me the worst script on the pile of scripts to prove that I can make a bad movie amazing. And then he did this, and then of course he rewrote it to make it great because he wasn't actually going to go make a bad movie like that. Mm-hmm. And so it's barely based off the book at all. I don't think anyone actually claims it is based off this book.
This is the last movie he directed.
What?
I think it is.
Orson Welles?
Yeah.
No.
What did he do after this?
Well, we're reviewing Chimes at Midnight.
Did he direct Chimes at Midnight?
Yeah.
It's the last film he directed in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. No,
That's
that
what
part.
yeah.
I mean, F for Fake is his last movie he directed.
That's what I meant. I don't know what happened. I had a brain freeze.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so there's a really curious thing, and, like, Charlton Heston was excited about, like, oh, I actually get to work with Orson Welles. Like, he's coming back. Like, this is a big deal. Mm-hmm. He's excited about this. And then he got fucked over again. The studio, once again, completely re-edited his movie. They re-edited the movie without his, like, cut. They tried to, like, fix it again. He sent a 58-page memo detailing exactly how he had fixed everything.
I love that a memo can still exist in 58 pages.
Yes. Wouldn't that just become a novella?
Yeah, exactly. Or, like, a thesis. A 58-page... A memo, to me, is something you could put on a Post-it.
Yeah.
Obviously, Orson Welles had strong feelings on it if he was willing to write 58 pages. That's insane.
I just love the studio head is sitting there, and assistant comes in. Oh, we have some correspondence from Mr. Welles. Oh, read it out to me. I don't think I can do that.
Here.
But, like... because this is supposed to be a big deal. I mean, this is Charlton Heston, and I don't know how big Janet Leigh was at the time, but I mean,
she's right about to be.
Yeah, she's 2 years away from Psycho. Mm-hmm. This was looked at as a trash noir film that would be like a dime movie. It even played as the second feature of a double feature against something that no one's ever heard of, like some cheap horror kind of thing. Like, this was just publicly seen as studio like just shitty on it. And it's kind of amazing that it works today where, like, it's now the most definitive version is the one that incorporated the memo's notes that were made, many years later. And it looks great. It's kind of crazy that even though it wasn't Orson Welles actually editing this film the way we saw it, it moves remarkably well. Like, I couldn't tell that this was a film recovery project in many ways.
Well, it was re-edited by Academy Award winner.
That helps.
Yeah, so there is that. And it is a few minutes longer, and I think there's 50 changes between the original and that one. So if you're looking for the actual edition to watch, the Blu-ray offers you 3 versions. Yeah. It offers you the preview version, which was found in the 70s or something like that.
Okay.
Then it offers you the original cut and then the Orson Welles version, which is definitely the one it wants you to watch because it features it at the top and then it opens up with the history of the memo.
Yeah.
So
which is the one I watched.
Yeah, it's the one that they're trying to pass out. In the original cut of the film, the opening shot had a credit sequence going over it with an original score, which wouldn't ruin it completely, but it would be half as good, probably. So much of the world building is done in that shot of where you're coming from, where you go. That's a real shame that they did that. It just kills the tension, man. Like it really does.
I weirdly sometimes felt that for Breaking Bad because like Breaking Bad is one of the best looking shows out there. It's just they had the best directors and cinematographers about it. So even when it's not a big like epic action scene, it's like a beautifully framed shot that says like produced by at the bottom. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
like I know this is like how shows are made and there's like union rules and whatnot, but like don't put it on. Can we have the credit list version on the Blu-ray? Because like it's just so pretty right now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of union rules, you have Orson Welles. I'm sure that was part of what he hated so much too about that crap. But anyway, so there is one other thing that's really weird that I want to touch on before it gets too late in this film. So you have. Honestly, when I watch this film, I'm not paying attention to the story that much. The story is pretty convoluted.
Yeah.
But it's. I mean, just watch what's happening. The scenes themselves in a bubble are all magnificent. It's just what they form by the other when you try to piece it together. It's not as complicated and convoluted as Vertigo, but
I can follow Vertigo more. There's something about.
Oh, come on! This did not have a woman faking like she was a ghost.
Oh, but I knew that's what's happening. Like when certain like Raymond Chandler movies and whatnot, like certain noir things, I no longer am like following the actual mystery. I'm just following the detective.
Right, and
I don't need to know where you knew this guy, why he knew this butler from this. Like I'm just going to go with the story and not question. Vertigo, I do know why he's in this room talking to her.
Well,
that's what I meant.
Yeah, well, the movie's goofy. Anyway, so no, so in this film, the only way to talk about this is kind of to talk about the plot. So Vargas, the Charlton Heston character, is a big border agent, detective person in Mexico, and he has just put a big crime lord away. It's a drug enforcement officer, and in order to put leverage on him, the brother of the drug lord has basically kidnapped his wife. There's a gang rape scene in this. I mean, it doesn't happen on screen, but it's definitely implied. Doors shut. Yeah. Because they're gonna drug her up and then frame her for the wife for using drugs to ruin the reputation of Vargas. That's not talked about. It's either forgot by the character or ignored. But it seems odd that there's really no mention of that. I believe the line is "hold her legs" and the door shuts.
God, it adds to the ugly, because the movie just has an ugly vibe to it.
It does,
which is like the heart of noir.
Oh, I liked that scene. I do like that. I like the build up for it, for film's sake. But it just seems odd that you can have a gang rape in a movie and then it not be talked about.
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, what was your take from that? That's what it was, right?
No, it was definitely sexual assault. Like no matter what actually happened behind the closed doors, that's not important. It's just like she is now being violated beyond the element of distress of being kidnapped.
Yeah.
And it is a disgusting thing that is happening.
Right.
Yeah, I found it uncomfortable, and I think I just got lost in the story element of it again because I don't know, it still focuses on Quinlan as the antagonist. Like, there isn't as much of a big comeuppance for now we're going to destroy the guys who did this to our female lead.
Because it doesn't care too much about its story, it almost seems like.
Yeah, or to see the villain be stopped in that way, the film is more interested in the sins of Quinlan
than it is about the story that surrounds the film. Right. So and that is more interesting, probably. It's less convoluted.
Yeah.
The other thing that kept coming to me was that, did Quinlan kill his wife?
No.
Didn't? Okay.
I don't think so.
I just thought about it because he ends up killing someone the same way his wife was killed, and he seems to talk about how perfect of a way it is to kill someone, and it's perfect because he wasn't able to capture the person because they did it that way.
That's why.
But it did pop in my head.
Okay. I don't think so. I think it's just him obsessing about it's so. I know this works because I've spent a decade trying to figure it out and I can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a nice little flair one way or another. It adds to, again, like I said, there's the puppy dogness, sadness to the character. At first, there's really
a puppy dog who has rabies.
A puppy dog that has rabies, yes. Yeah. A sadness to the character. There are so many moments where you look at him and he's ugly, he's disgusting, and then you're like, is he crying?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That happened a couple times too, where I'm pretty sure he was crying. And I was like, whoa. Because there's sweat all over his face. So it's like, how would you know? Because he's just so gross and wet all the time.
Yeah.
And then what's he thinking about in those moments? Is he thinking about his reputation? Is he thinking about his wife? It's implied that he used to be an alcoholic. It's not implied. It's explicitly said. He used to be an alcoholic. He didn't used to be fat when he was an alcoholic. He started eating chocolate and sweets. Again, there's this weird type of lashings that Orson Welles seems to be giving himself. The character is fat because he doesn't stop eating. That's what's said. There's a character that doesn't recognize him from the last time they saw him because now he's so fat. And then he said it's either eat the chocolate or drink the hooch.
Which would be the last time Hollywood saw him, because most audiences didn't see his European films.
And then he returns and he's this really big fat guy, right? And that kind of, again, gets at the... There's a lot of art imitating life here, I think, as it pertains to Orson Welles, who is an otherwise kind of sad story to begin with, right?
He's the opposite of Christian Bale in that whenever we see him, we expect him to look 100% different. We go, oh, you're a skeleton now.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, exactly. but that yo-yoed, right? Because you had The Machinist with Christian Bale, then you saw Batman Begins, so that yo-yoed.
Oh, he yo-yoed again. He's fat playing Dick Cheney.
Oh, okay. Okay, so he's fat Dick Cheney?
Yeah.
Why don't they just cast an old fat guy to play Dick Cheney?
Oh, because Christian Bale volunteered.
Oh, yeah?
He walked into the casting call for old fat guy and goes, I got this.
Well, anyway, regardless, so you have with that, but with him, it's more like how much fatter is Orson Welles going to be the next time I see him? And that came to such a huge focus of his life in general.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very fat here. Next movie, he's morbidly obese, right? Mm-hmm. And again, I can't help but see Orson Welles in there. You know, he literally makes fun of the character. I think he's making fun of himself. He's trying to make it okay.
Yeah, I think so.
You know what I mean? Anyway, what do you think, Austin?
Touch of Evil.
Touch of Evil.
It's I mean, it's a
good movie.
It's a good movie. Just kind of like all noir films. Like, hey, you're about to go into darkness for 2 hours, and it's gross.
Yeah.
And I think this is a rather good one. Still not one of my favorites, but it's much more promise of Orson Welles as a filmmaker. Of like, man, I do wish that like he made more films in the studio system. Like this had a shot to show him like make some really interesting films within genre, even like that say a lot. And maybe he will cast the right race next time. I don't know.
Don't bet on it.
Oh, I haven't watched Chimes yet.
All right, so that is Touch of Evil. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at let's take a 5 at theartimmortal.com. If you have something to talk about, a Touch of Evil, talk about Othello, Third Man, Citizen Kane, either of those, that's fine. You can tweet at us at the Immortals Pod. That's the Twitter handle. Mm-hmm. You catch me on Constant Diversion. That's my YouTube channel. I review video games on there. Currently working on Chrono Trigger and the Chrono Trigger video. And you can leave a comment at theartimmortal.com as well. Two other podcasts that we share on the network are The Immortals and Ad Absurdum, and Austin is going to tell you about those.
Yeah. The Immortals is back. Yesterday was episode 101. We finished our month-long hiatus with a rather fun episode where we talked about Greece, which also has the word gangbang said in the movie.
I'm glad someone's finally just tearing the Band-Aid off and saying it.
Sure. I'm not... We also about Top Gear. Top Gear, the show where, white hosts sometimes say inappropriate things.
About time.
Also, Ad Absurdum is the brilliant podcast where the pop culture legal team talks about legal implications in films. And they talk about Inception, and they should have a new one down the pipeline sometime. I don't know if they've announced what they're doing yet, so I'm not going to say it. And, yeah, we'll be back next week where we're going to be reviewing Chimes at Midnight, the movie that is taking a Shakespearean side character from a couple of plays and giving him the coherent version of what he was doing in all those plays. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all Shakespeare's language.
Yeah.
So it's basically his scenes from those plays, but it sort of forms to make a cohesive story of Falstaff.
Yeah. I'm excited for one. I've not seen it in a long time. I'm actually doing some prep work. I'm finishing up Henry IV Part 2 and such to get ready for it.
Whether, as we were talking about the other week, whether Othello is your definitive Othello, I doubt Orson Welles is going to pop up there on the list as the person who should be playing Othello. In terms of Midnight,
he can play Falstaff.
He is Falstaff. I think by the end of his life, right?
Falstaff's the fattest Shakespearean character.
Yeah, explicitly referred to as a very merry, drunk, fat guy.
Yeah.
Orson Welles, you got this.
Yeah.
I'm expecting great things.
All right. So we'll catch you all next week. My name's Austin.
My name's Eric.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Intuition also tell you about my wife?
Wife?
She was accosted in the street a little while ago and led across to some dive on your side of the border.
Vargas family seems to be getting into quite a lot of trouble tonight. Can you describe this man?
Now, the first one seems to have been young, good-looking, and... Not exactly?
Not exactly. Say she was taken to this dive by force?
Not by force, no.
Oh.
One of the grandees was there waiting. Short, fat, with a mustache. That
Uncle
suits the
Joe.
description. I haven't run into him. What?
They call him Uncle Joe, Grant.
That's right.
Go on.
What do you mean, go on? I've told you what happened. Aren't you going to do something about it?
Well, make it a charge. I got to ask a complaint, or isn't that police procedure in Mexico?
Procedure?
Say your wife was attacked.
I did not say she was
Did you just
attacked.
say she was molested?
Not physically molested, no.
Was obscene language.
I don't think so.
How do you explain the fact that your wife allowed herself to be picked up by this
She was not
good-looking...
picked up.
Now, Hank, I think we're getting off on the wrong tack here.
Then this good-looking young man was a friend of hers.
Obviously not.
You wouldn't call that getting picked up in the street.
Now, we mustn't mustn't forget, must we, that Mr. Vargas is not on the witness stand. Hank's a born lawyer, you know.
Lawyer? I'm no lawyer. All a lawyer cares about is the law.
Captain, you are a policeman, aren't you?
Aren't you? You don't seem to be very fond of the
There are
job.
plenty of soldiers who don't like war. It's a dirty job, enforcing the law, but it's what we're supposed to be doing, isn't it?
I don't know about you. When a murderer's loose, I'm supposed to catch him. Well, Pete, let's get back to civilization.